Hello, kind people. This is Dmitry, and this is my weekly listener recap. I'm going to talk about this puzzle on the screen. It's called Location. It's by Arcadia, and it is going to be a tricky one because this is a very difficult puzzle. I think it is one of the toughest listeners I have done, and probably the toughest one this year so far. Maybe, yeah, on par with that, with the Hawks one. But yeah, not sure. I think subjectively I found this trickier. But then I think this is always true for the more recent puzzles, because I think the more time passes, the kind of, you just forget how difficult it was. So what can I say about Arcadia? Two things. So for some reason in my head, I know Arcadia for his hard puzzles, but somehow in my head I think they blended together with another setter called Agricola, and I just looked at the puzzles lists on the listener website, and it turns out that in 2022 Agricola had a puzzle called Location, and so now we have Location by Arcadia. So the other thing is that I want to say about Arcadia is that last year in the Magpie, there was an E-grader which was my favorite puzzle of the year. It was called Navigation for a Walk, and it was by Stymphalides, and Stymphalides was a joint setter, and one half of Stymphalides is Arcadia. So definitely part of, top tier of listener setters. So let's have a look at this one. So this is a circular grid, as you can see. I think we typically get one circular grid per year in the listener. There is one setter who is very prolific circular grid setter called Ace of Hearts. I mean, I did enjoy some of Ace of Hearts puzzles, but on average, I think I must say I was not the biggest fan, and so somehow I blamed it a little bit on the circular grid thing. So I was a little bit prejudiced against circular grids, but this one was, as you'll see, is absolutely brilliant. So let's read the preamble, and then I'm not sure what's going to happen because it's not easy to show this puzzle. In each pair of radio clues, one has wordplay leading to the answer plus an extra letter, and the answer is entered cyclically inwards or outwards. So we'll see what that means in a second. And the other clue has a letter misprinted and its answer is entered jumbled. For both types, the ring that contains the answer's first letter is given in brackets, one being the outermost ring. So let's have a look at some examples. So I don't know, maybe let's look at the pair of which one might be the easier one. Let me find some, because they're all not very easy. Okay, I have them all, because these are such a hard clues that even once you solve them, you don't immediately remember them all. So, okay. I think let's look at this pair, for example. So oh no, this is not a pair because they go from 1, 2, then 3, 4, and so on. So, okay, let's look at 3 and 4. So, Durban Senior, originally named in Principles of Mathematics Empirical Reasoning. So this one is the clue with a misprint. So here it's Durban Sir, and so you have originally named in Principles of Mathematics Empirical Reasoning. So originally named is Ni, and as in like the maiden name. And then the principles of are the first letters of mathematics empirical reasoning, and you end up with the word meneer, which is the South African way of saying sir. And so here you have a correction. And so what this 5 tells you is that this clue, so recall that the ones with the misprints, they are entered jumbled, so we have no clue how to enter any of this, apart from the fact that we need to put letter M in the 5th ring. And so when you go back here, this M goes here. And then we have no clue at the moment how to fill the rest of this entry, the 3rd entry. And so what about the 4th one? Date 1 conducted short Handel opera. So I think the answer to this is something like, say, similar. And the way this works, and you have the extra letter here is E. So if you date someone, you see them. 1 is like a row 1 could be me. And then conducted might be led, and that is short. And so I think the way it works is you have, let me actually quickly check, is that right? Yeah, that is right. So, and now we know that if we're lucky and we solved both of them, now we know that this S has to be in the 3rd one, and that answer, so it goes here. Is it the 4th? Yeah, it is the 4th. And then it has to be entered either cyclically, so it either goes that way, but that doesn't work because this has to be M. So it goes inside, inwards. So this is how you enter this one. And so then Meneer, 3 of 6 letters of Meneer are now settled. So the rest is N, R, and yet another E. And so you get kind of pencil mark them here. So not a lot of help from the checking letters. Worse than that, you would expect to get some help from the crossing, that is, the rings answers. And as you can see, there are very few of those given. There are only 5, and so the ones which I actually named are, this one, this one, this one, this one, and that one, and that's it. So you don't get any more crossing entries. However, you do notice that there are bars in the other rings, and so or in the other parts of ring 1. And so you probably could guess that, those other things have to be real words as well. And that would be a correct guess. And that, as we'll see, helps a lot. So let's read the preamble to the end. So now we have these 2 sets of letters, right? We have these extra letters and we have these misprints. So misprints corrections spell the name of something that has moved from ring 1 to ring 3, and the name must be entered in the central space. Aligning with the radius isn't required. So you see there are these ticks inside. Guided by Matthew 7:20, 10 thematic names can be identified. And Matthew 7:20 tells you that you will know them by their fruits. After filling the grid, solvers must rotate the contents of rings 2 to 6 so that the name identified by extra letters from wordplay occupies the asterisk cells, and the two missing thematic names appear as entries which must be highlighted. So this is some endgame. So I think by now you appreciate, you hopefully appreciate how, tricky it is. Because every even if you solve the clue with an extra letter, there are always two ways of entering it. And so until you solve some of the neighboring clues, you don't know which one is correct. But once you do, you get some letters from the jumbled one, and you hopefully could get, some idea about what the jumbled entry might be. Moreover, the clues here are very hard. I think on average this is definitely among the harder set of clues. Just to show you some that I thought is sort of borderline fair, it becomes easier once you sort of guess what this is all about, because it turns out to be thematic. But this one, Interflora perhaps, and Interflora I think is it a film or but anyway, so it's not a word in Chambers, so I think it's a name. Changes order of this publisher section, and the answer here is Bloomsbury. Because if you treat the word Interflora as Interflora, and you change the sections of the word Bloomsbury, you could get Barry Blooms, which would mean, inter or Barry some flowers, some blooms, some flora. At least this is how I parse it. For some of the clues I'm not even certain about my parsing, but I think this one is correct, and it is very hard, because typically, you are used to the fact that capitalization could be misleading, but the fact that you have to split the word Interflora into inter and flora, that is not common at all. So what I think I want to show next is basically where I started kind of sensing the theme, which was around sort of this situation. So I solved the 41 radio, which was goods yard. As you can see, there are some, like this is a random letter in the grid because the corresponding entry is a jumbled one, and so I only know where the first letter of it goes. And about this, maybe it was a little bit later. So I solved it on paper, and I tried to take photos of various stages of my solve, but I'm not sure this is exactly sort of where some of the So at some point, what happened was I realized that the last entries from sort of this latter section of radio answers, the misprint corrections started spelling something that could have been museum, because I think I got something which was like UCEU, and there was one more to go, and so this one, which I didn't solve, but I thought it probably could be museum, and I even thought where the correction could go. So specifically, well, let's have a look at that one. By now, so here I already printed all the messages for you, but so this one, rare carp at full length here. So I thought that it could be camp instead of carp, and so that seemed plausible. And so I thought, if it is a museum, and this is something that moved from ring 1 to ring 3, and here I realized that in ring 3 there is Somers, and I thought if this is town, you get Somers Town Goods Yard, and I realized that this is the location of British Library, and so it could be, and British Library used to be at British Museum, and there was this reading room at the British Museum, which, if you look at it from the top, it was circular, and so I thought that makes a lot of sense. And if you realize that, then suddenly this thematic Bloomsbury makes a lot of sense, because there, that is where British Museum was, And so then suddenly this Great also makes sense, because this becomes Great Russell Street. And suddenly you get access to all these letters, and you can solve, you can solve more words, you can solve more clues, because it was very hard to cold solve them. So I got a few of those, but not a lot. So the other big breakthrough came when you realized that the so let's see. So this was Meseta, which is some sort of plain in Spain, like a plateau in Spain. So this goes like this. And so I think then eventually I solved this. Can't even remember the order anymore. But then at some point you realize that the entries in ring 2, so there is Anon here, and then at some point you realize that this is Milton, and so they look like, so Milton is an author. And then at some point, and it took me, I think I had to get this as well, which I think was Stern, to realize that these are not just some authors, but if you look at the clues, and you realize that there are a lot of clues with names of some literary works. Like Room at the Top, Principles of Mathematics, which I believe is Newton. Epistles to Several Persons, which I believe is Russell, and we have it in have Russell in ring 1. So Paradise Lost Regained, there we go, that's Milton. Summer is a Cumin is a folk song, and so the answer is, with the author is anonymous, and so on. Maybe optics was Newton, and Principles of Mathematics. Maybe optics was Newton, Principles of Mathematics was Russell, and Epistles to Several Persons, who is that? Let me quickly check. Oh, that's Pope. Yeah, okay, so then Alexander Pope goes somewhere else. And yeah, that is definitely a big breakthrough, because then as soon as you know that you need to have, a 6-letter author, and so I think it was it Newton that goes there? No, it was, yeah, it was Newton. So you realize that, you need to fit Newton somewhere. So basically, yeah, for each such clue, the corresponding author appears in the grid, apart from the 2 of them, and those are the 2 missing thematic names. One way to actually start thinking about this was that at some point you realize that an awful lot of clues in this puzzle, they follow the same pattern, that they are this sort of composite anagram clues, where you take an anagram of a longer word and you subtract from it the anagram of a shorter word, and so anagram the rest, and you get the answer. So for example, and there were loads of those, so like Paradise Lost Regained could generate satire parodied by these inventors. So this was one with a misprint, so instead of inventors you got investors, and the way this clue worked is it's an anagram of those words they could generate, and then you have to take satire parodied, anagram that, plus these inventors, and these investors, and the inventors are angels. And it turns out there are loads of clues like this, because I guess this is the easiest way to fit the long titles unchanged in the clues. So here is another one. Let's find some more. So here is another one, right? Level up. So this is the one for this meseta thing. So making a sentimental journey without quirky Latin. So journey here is used as an anagram indicator. So you need to take a sentimental and you anagram it, but you anagram it without anagrammed Latin. So you get rid of Latin and you end up with an anagram of meseta plus this extra n. And I think there were at least 4 and maybe 5 of those clues. Like here is another one. Indexes lives of the abbots revised without those of BV, sadly. Again, like you revise this, so you anagram this without the anagram of that. And you end up with, I think, tables plus I. And so you see a lot of those type, and normally you get like maybe 1 or 2 of those clues, and here you get 5. And that makes you think like, why are they so prevalent and why are these longer titles there? And if you do that and you realize that, the authors must be present in the grid, that makes life much, much easier, because now suddenly you get almost like 3 rings filled. So, so let me show you how the rest is filled. Great Russell Street in Bloomsbury. So this is London, in Bloomsbury, London, WC1B, and this is the postcode of British Museum, where it currently is and where the reading room once was. And then when it moves to it, so sites of Somerstown, Goods Yard, and so this potato was another clued one. So that was a potter around A, and potter is a type of loris, I think. And this was market. And so yeah, Somerstown, Goods Yard, and Potato Market is where the reading room was recited. And so this is what the filled grid is going to look like once you do all that. And then the other thing that you need to do, well, and then we are at the end game stage. And for the end game, we need to read the other message. And the other message is, so yeah, the message from the misprints is Library, British Museum. And so that is what moved. And the other one was nonsensical because it's N-E-R-R-E-A-D and so on, until you realize that in this thematic way where everything is circular, it is also cycled. And so you need to start reading this message from here, and it gives you Reading Room Designer. And Reading Room Designer is, oh, sorry, I have to take this call, so I will pause this for a second. I'm really sorry. Sorry for this. So yeah, so you have to read this message from the word Reading Room, and you get Reading Room Designer. And so if you look at who designed British Museum Reading Room, it was this chap called Sidney Smirke, S-M-I-R-K-E. And so now you have to rotate the inner rings in such a way that you get Smirke in the asterisk cell. So you need to put M in this cell and so on. And as you can see, at the inmost ring, you have to put an E, which is already there, but there's quite a selection of E's here. And so you need to understand which one you need. And you need the ones that generate as the entries the 2 missing authors. And the 2 missing authors are Brain and Green. So they have their works in the clues, but they're not present in the initially completed grid. And so here you have I guess what you have to write is Library British Museum or British Museum Library. Oh, I just realized that probably I did it wrong, and I guess you have to enter this as a British Museum Library because it is also cycled, pretty much like the reading room designer is cycled. So I guess you have to enter it as like this. British Museum Library. Because otherwise it doesn't make much sense. Let's see. Oh, let's read the preamble again, because this is an interesting point. It would be a bit of a shame to get marked wrong for this. So, misprint correction, spell the name. And here you have the name identified by extra letters from wordplay. Misprint correction, spell the name. But Library British Museum doesn't really make much. It's not. You don't really say that, right? You say British Museum Library. But maybe it is like library, comma, British Museum, library which is in the British Museum. Whoa, I must admit I don't know, but I'm inclined to submit it this way. So what do they say about aligning with the radius isn't required? I'm not sure I even understand what this means. Whoa, that's interesting. But I do hope that if you submit it like I'm about to send it in this way, and I hope that it is correct. But now I'm not sure anymore. Anyway, this was a long video, but it was a very hard listener, and I think a very beautiful one. Like the run of very good quality listeners continues. Stunning year. I think it's much stronger than where we were at the same time last year, where we had one or two very good ones, but overall the quality this year is much better. Thank you for watching, and yeah, well, this will be released at the same time as the solution is released, and so obviously by the time you're watching this, you know whether this is the way you should submit this or not. And I hope it is. Thank you for watching. Bye.